farmers in crisis, and some are choosing a desperate option.
Just got to the point where I didn't figure anybody cared. I felt like a burden.
I'm Adrienne Pedersen. Today on Upfront, a difficult topic: suicide. Next, Matt Smith reports on a farmer who nearly took his own life, how he's now helping others. Plus, what can state lawmakers do to help? I'll ask the chair of the Speaker's Task Force on Suicide Prevention, Joan Ballweg, of Markesan. And President Trump's tweets. Do they move voters or just drive media coverage? And how will social media play a role in 2020?
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Welcome to Upfront. We're talking about a tough subject today: suicide. It's uncomfortable and terribly sad, but we need to have this conversation. People in the agricultural community tell us that more farmers are feeling like they have no other option. The Speaker's Task Force on Suicide Prevention will hold a hearing tomorrow specifically on farm suicides. In a few minutes, I'll talk to the state lawmaker leading that task force. But first, Matt Smith has a story of a Wisconsin farmer who tried to end his own life. He didn't succeed, and now he's helping others.
Jeff Ditzenberger's view comes from decades of perspective, a lifetime on the farm, and seemingly a lifetime of ups and downs.
I would say probably 95% of the people that are in this business do it for a sense of pride too. But like I said before, pride doesn't pay the bills.
Soybeans and corn cover the 700 plus acres in southern Wisconsin.
I'm pleased the way the crop looks right now.
Jeff sees and hears the challenges every day of low commodity prices, rising costs, and a dwindling number of farms dotting the Wisconsin landscape. Jeff also knows the challenges firsthand. A suicide attempt years ago after a tour in Iraq, a failing marriage, and daily challenges on the farm, in a sense, eventually turned his life right side up.
I just got to the point where I didn't figure anybody cared. I felt like a burden. I hated myself. I hated everything I stood for. I never, ever, ever, ever want anyone to feel as bad as I did. And I remember how I felt. I remember it vividly.
Anecdotally, it's believed suicide rates among Wisconsin farmers are rising, although hard data doesn't exist. Calls to the Wisconsin Farm Center's helpline, which offers support to farmers, are up. So too are the calls to Jeff's phone.
Talk to me about the calls, the Facebook messages, the emails, what have you, that you're receiving. What are people telling you?
It's everything. Some people will contact me that I've never met before. They might have seen me at a speaking event, or they know about my nonprofit.
The nonprofit Jeff started several years ago is called Tugs and has morphed into a lifeline for struggling farmers of any stripe.
She's like, "Oh my God, I'm dying." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty hot out." And she's like, "No." And she sent me a picture with pills in her hand and that she was in full suicide mode.
The calls, not always that dire, he says, come daily. A unique conversation farmer to farmer that he wants policymakers to hear loud and clear.
One of the easiest ways to get rid of this god-awful stigma with mental health and suicide is, one, to talk about it, and I'm gonna keep talking about it until the good Lord takes me off of this earth, because it needs to be talked about.
The 2018 Farm Bill included $50 million specifically for mental health resources in rural areas, a provision pushed for by Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin and Iowa's Joni Ernst. And on Thursday, the Ag Department announced another $16 billion to help farms in the midst of global trade wars. Adrienne?
The issue of farm suicides became increasingly political last week. The Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection says they only have 5 vouchers left for farmers in need of mental health care. Republican legislative leaders delayed funding. They want DATCAP to work through the Suicide Prevention Task Force for more money. But Ag Secretary designee Brad Pfaff says farmers can't wait. He accused Republicans of abandoning Wisconsin farmers. Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald fired back, though, calling that flippant and inflammatory. The Speaker's Task Force on Suicide Prevention will hold a hearing tomorrow in Marshfield. We're talking now with Republican Representative Joan Ballweg of Markesan, who is leading that task force. Thank you for your time. A really important conversation we're having today.
Absolutely, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about how we're working in this bipartisan task force to address not only farmers but youth, veterans, and more in Wisconsin.
And unfortunately, we have to start with the fact that the two parties are fighting over where money should come from when we're helping Wisconsin farmers. I mean, how urgent is this issue?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how familiar the Secretary Designee is on this particular issue, but I've been working with DATCAP over the last year. I met with them earlier this month in preparation for our task force meeting and asked them those specific questions. How many vouchers do you need? What kind of FTEs, what kind of personnel do you need to be able to do a good job in responding to the calls that come into the farm center? Because it's not just for those vouchers for mental health, it's also for their own planning on the farm, whether it be financial planning, succession planning, and many other areas that the farm center responds to.
So can farmers afford to wait for this money, for this help?
Well, I think that farmers will be getting the help that they need, but what we're trying to do in this bipartisan task force is to make sure that we have a long-term sustainable opportunity and do this in a comprehensive way. One of the things that we found out in the task force meetings thus far is we have a lot of silos. There's the farm center doing things. There is a national hotline that is supported by our Department of Health Services. Counties are doing things, and we need to bring everyone together to use our resources in the best way and give everyone the help that's needed, and in our rural communities.
And just this last week, we saw, unfortunately, everyone's not coming together and they're fighting over this. So, I mean, is this something that needs to get done right now? Does more money need to be on the table? Does that concern you?
Well, I'd love to hear those numbers. We've asked for that information from DATCAP. Maybe they're going to give it to us or was going to be part of their presentation on Monday. I'm not sure, but we haven't gotten that information as to what their needs are and what we can provide for them in a holistic manner to make sure that we are serving that community.
And to put the voucher question in perspective, in 2019, they say so far they've sent out 95 vouchers. 35 have been redeemed. So I know that's something they want to work on, is just make sure that farmers redeem these vouchers, that they get that mental health help. And I know your task force is going to work on two at-risk groups, farmers and youth. Why are those groups so at risk?
And veterans and law enforcement, actually also because they're suffering from secondary trauma in many cases. Farmers is the occupation with the highest incidence percentage-wise of suicides. Youth in Wisconsin is the second leading cause of death of youth. So what are we doing to help those teachers, counselors, families to address this? Understand what some of the cues are for young people that need help. Back on the farmer side of things, we're both the UW Extension and the Farm Medicine Center is looking at suicide prevention training, kind of first aid training in awareness, and that is the business people and the social supports that are in those communities, the bankers, the veterinarians, which also have a very high rate of suicide actually, the people at the feed mill, the implement dealer, all of those folks, the faith-based community, all of those folks, to make sure that they're aware and can see some of the signs if someone is heading toward a crisis situation.
In September, you will be bringing what you've learned to the legislature, making recommendations, and hopefully changes will follow.
I'm a rural business owner, been doing this for over 40 years. I know many of these people, and I understand how if they have someone who is trusted in their community, those farmers will be reaching out for advice, whether it's financial, health care, succession planning. I know for a fact that this is something that will work. The Farm Medicine Center is doing this through their own foundation, and many of our UW Extension groups are also trying to do community-based training for those communities.
I was interested to see that on the list of something you want to explore is better ways to harness the use of technology. What does that mean? How does technology play a role?
Well, there are hotlines, of course. There's the texting line, which is, we found through this, is used very much by youth and by veterans, actually. There are apps that are out there right now where people can have a quick way to get to resources or to ask for resources themselves. And there are the hotlines where people can call in when they are worried about somebody. So what are the resources that someone can get to, and how do you get to a resource to know what the signs are?
Well, with more than 700 Wisconsin residents dying by suicide per year, I think we all know this is a problem.
Actually, more than that. In 2018, it was 926 folks that took their lives by suicide. Nationally, we are a little bit under the national average by just a hair, but we do feel this is important, especially when it comes to our strong agricultural tradition. We need to recognize that those entrepreneurs are actually very resilient. We need to help them with that. We need to make sure that they are accessing the resources that are available to them through the Wisconsin Farm Center, whether it be their financial planning or their mental health needs.
Okay, Representative Ballweg, thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrienne.
Appreciate your time. Well, we were just discussing it, so we want to give you that hotline for struggling farmers. It's 1-800-942-2474 to reach the Wisconsin Farm Center there. Next, President Trump uses Twitter like few others do. I'll ask an expert if it really impacts voters. And later, National Democrats vow to wow with their convention in Milwaukee.
We have to get it right, and we will work to make sure that we do.
What it'll take to pull it off.
Upfront, brought to you by WPS Health Insurance.